So what is equity and what can you do with it? So I wanted to make a really quick video about this because I've seen some videos on social media that talk about what equity is, and they talk about ownership and how the bank's involved and kind of sometimes conflating the two, indicating that like the bank owns the property. So first I wanted to clear up like what equity actually is, and then move into how you can use it. And there's a few different ways. So first I want to explain that equity is simply just basically what your financial stake is that you can pull out of the property. Right. So you, from the day you buy the property, right, your deed should be, your name should be on the deed, or your LLC or the trust, whatever it is you have. But at the end of the day, you, whether it's your entity or you yourself, is on the deed. So, or if it's husband and wife, right? And so you have complete ownership from the second you buy the property. You are able to see the property. You can invite guests over. You decide when to sell the property. The bank, the representatives from the bank cannot come in and say, I'm going to spend the night here because I'm part owner, or they can't decide, you know what, I feel like it's a good time to sell. I think we should sell your home, right? So they have what's called a lien position. And oftentimes for a mortgage, it's the first lien position. So a lien is just it's an instrument that's able to be attached to a property that says, hey, if you breach this contract, whatever it might be, maybe you miss a certain amount of payments, or you do something, whatever it is, right? The bank can then rely on the contract to say, hey, you breached the contract. Now we're going to step in and we're going to be able to force a sale of the home to get back what we are owed since we lent you the money, right? So that's all it is. A lien position is just is a safeguard for the lender, but it is not an ownership stake in the property. So I just want to clarify that, because sometimes if you are on social media and you hear people talking about ownership with the bank and with the homeowner, and that's tied to equity. So I just hope that's clear there, that your equity is just what you've built up financially in the property, but you still own it day one. So, I mean, on day one, you might owe the entire principal balance plus interest. That's true, but you also outright own the home that day. All right, so that's equity, right? So let's say you own $100,000 worth of equity in your home, but you still owe $200,000 in the principal balance. So that is going to be your equity position in the property. Now, what you can do with that is you can either pull out a HELOC. So you can take out a HELOC on the property, which is a home equity line of credit. You can sell the property because that's your equity position. If you have the 100,000 minus any closing costs, real estate commissions, potentially even property tax, sorry, not property, but your capital gains taxes, then yes, when you subtract all those out, your net could be, let's just call it 60,000. Okay, so that's the actual money you have available to be able to use. And then you can also cash out refinance. So you can say, hey, I don't want to use the line of credit on the property. What I want to do is I want to take out an entirely new loan, which that often increases the principal balance owed. So that's up to you whether you want to do a HELOC or you want to do a cash out refinance, or you want to just simply sell. But equity allows you to do those things. If you have no equity in the home, I mean, sure, you can sell the property, I guess, but you would sell it at a complete loss because you're going to be doing two different closing costs, two different, right? So there's just a lot going on with selling it when you don't have any equity. So equity allows you to have those options. What we're doing is we're electing to take out a HELOC on one of our investment properties. And so what that means is that we have an investment property in North Carolina that we're drawing from, and it's $160,000. So what lenders will do is they'll take either 70%, maybe sometimes 80%. I think I've even read some can have upwards of 90%, but that's usually for your primary residence. Against the actual equity that you have. And so for us as an investment property, if I remember correctly, 70% was the max you can do. You get more favorable terms if it's a little bit lower, but anyway, so that's what we have available. So we can tap into that and say we want to go do a BRRRR, a buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, or if we want to just simply buy another turnkey investment property, we can use that money to do so. And then that's our mortgage, so to speak. And then once we get stabilized, we can do a DSCR, we can do a cash out refinance with that, pay back the HELOC. Now we got an actual secure, but with the HELOC, essentially it's your cash to draw. So you can potentially be aggressive and competitive when you're making offers versus someone that's coming in and say, hey, we're gonna make an offer on this property. We can close in, 35 days, but here with essentially a cash offer, you can say, I can close tomorrow if speed is important to the seller, right? So it gives you options. We're doing that on the property. We're actually in the process of getting another HELOC on a separate investment property. So there's really not necessarily a limit. Like you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you want. I believe there's some lenders that can actually do kind of like a portfolio HELOC. We haven't explored that yet. I think I've read that it's out there, but what we're doing is very simple right now. It's just a HELOC on a separate property, then a HELOC on another property. So we're hopefully being able to combine those funds to be able to either just outright buy property and put our own rehab into it. And then once we have it stabilized, we can do a cash out refinance on that particular property, have enough to pay back our initial, HELOCs that we used. And in a sense, we're kind of our own banking system. That's the goal. Now, will we have to or can we rely on hard money lenders down the line to either supplement or completely take over something that we're trying to acquire for an investment property? Sure. And I think what I've looked at is like the fees and the interest rates are pretty similar to what we have for HELOCs right now. For the HELOC that we have, it's 10.99%, so not great, and it's also an investment property, so that I think that matters too. So you have to look at it and think, all right, yeah, it's a little bit of a higher interest rate, but we have access to that if we're not able to draw out of our home, or we don't feel comfortable drawing it out of our primary residence. That could be an issue too. It's not necessarily that you can't, it's that you don't want to. So this all comes down to risk tolerance, what your goals are, right? And then you kind of have to finagle what you want to do from there, managing cash flow, how long you're going to float these payments, because the HELOC, there should be interest only payments, should you elect to do that. So that's a benefit of it. It gives you that breathing room to be able to just make those interest only payments for a certain amount of time before we have to pay back the principal. Not to say that you can't pay back the principal sooner. It's just, it gives you that extra room, right? So that's just what we're doing now. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And, I hope to be of further help later in the future. And if you have any questions at all, just please drop a comment below and just let us know what you're up to. Or if you have any questions about this, be happy to answer any questions for anyone and help in any way I can.